The elders threw her into holy water. She absorbed it and became immune to every vampire weakness. The village of Eldoria lay hidden in a deep valley, shrouded by mist and ancient forests. Its cobblestone streets were silent under the pale light of the rising moon, and the houses seemed to huddle together, as though afraid of the shadows that roamed the mountains beyond. The villagers, simple folk with worn hands and watchful eyes, whispered of strange powers, curses, and beings that lived beyond their understanding. Among these whispers, one name stirred fear and awe alike: Leora. Leora was a child unlike any other. From the moment of her birth, the elders claimed she carried a shadowed gift, a curse that would either destroy or save them. Her eyes, dark and luminous like twilight, held a depth that unsettled those who met her gaze. The village elders, keepers of ancient laws and traditions, watched her grow with caution, their hands always on the edges of their robes, ready to act if the darkness within her became too strong. On the eve of the rare blood eclipse, the air in Eldoria was thick with tension. The villagers lit candles, and the elders gathered by the sacred river, where waters ran with a silvery glow, untouched by mortal hand. Leora was brought forward, her small frame trembling but her spirit unbroken. She looked at the elders with a mixture of fear and defiance, sensing that the night would change her forever. "You have strayed from the natural order," Elder Malric intoned, his voice echoing against the stone cliffs. "The darkness within you cannot be allowed to spread. The river will cleanse you." Leora's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing. She had heard whispers, seen visions in the flickering candlelight, of power, of fire and water intertwined, of a destiny far greater than she could imagine. And yet, standing here, surrounded by those who feared her, she felt a cold knot of fear twist in her chest. The elders lifted her and carried her to the river bank. Its waters glimmered under the eclipsed moon, carrying a strange, almost sacred light. Leora stared at her reflection and saw not a frightened girl but a being waiting to awaken. "Hold her steady," Elder Malric commanded. Two others grasped her arms. Another chanted words older than memory, calling upon forces unseen. The elders prepared to immerse her in the river, their hearts heavy with the conviction that they were saving the village from ruin. As the water touched her skin, Leora felt a shock ripple through her body. Not pain, but a strange warmth that spread from her fingertips to her heart. The holy water flowed over her, glinting like liquid starlight, and she realized with both wonder and fear that she was not burning. Instead, the water seemed to merge with her, as if it recognized her as one of its own. Elder Malric's eyes widened. "It cannot be, she is absorbing it," he whispered, his voice shaking. Leora felt the river's energy pulse inside her, weaving with something ancient in her blood. Her mind swirled with visions: sunlight falling on stone towers, shadows moving through forests, whispers of secrets that had never been spoken aloud. Her body trembled, but she did not scream. She closed her eyes and let the energy flow through her, feeling her very essence expand and change. When she finally opened her eyes, the river no longer seemed dangerous. It was a part of her, a force she could feel in every heartbeat. She was no longer a child of fear. She was something new, something untouchable by the powers that had once threatened her. Sunlight would not scorch her skin. Silver would not harm her. Even the holy water which had been meant to destroy her had become her strength. The elders stepped back, awe and terror in their eyes. They had never seen such a transformation. Leora stood in the river, her hair glistening, her eyes brighter than the moon itself. She could feel every ripple of the water, every breath of wind, every shadow in the night. She was alive in a way that defied the world's rules. And then, from the edge of the forest, a shadow moved. Tall, elegant, and impossibly still, a figure watched her with eyes that gleamed like polished obsidian. Leora felt a shiver run down her spine. This was no ordinary stranger. She could sense it immediately. Something ancient and powerful, something dangerous, yet undeniably magnetic. The figure stepped closer, and the light of the eclipse glinted off his pale skin. He was a vampire lord, centuries old, feared across kingdoms and whispered about in the darkest legends. And yet, as he approached, Leora did not feel fear alone. There was a pull, a strange recognition, as if their destinies had been entwined long before she was born. You, his voice was low, melodic, carrying both command and curiosity. You are different. Leora's heart pounded, but she did not speak. Words felt unnecessary. The water that had flowed into her veins seemed to hum in response to his presence. She felt a connection she could not explain, a thread that tied her life to his, fragile yet unbreakable. You have absorbed the holy water, he continued, his gaze never leaving her face. And yet, you are alive. More than alive, you are immune to the weaknesses that bind our kind. The sun, the silver, the holy symbols, they cannot touch you. Leora swallowed hard. The realization made her head spin. She was no longer simply a girl feared by villagers. She was a being of power, one that neither humans nor vampires could control. Yet, along with the wonder, there was a sense of danger, of a world shifting beneath her feet. The vampire lord extended his hand, a gesture both commanding and inviting. "Come with me," he said. "There are truths you must learn, powers you must master. The world will fear you, but if you walk this path wisely, you may shape it instead of being shaped by it." Leora hesitated, glancing back at the village. The elders' faces were pale, frozen in a mixture of anger, fear, and awe, but she knew there was no going back. The girl who had stood trembling by the river had ceased to exist. In her place was someone new, someone destined to challenge the order of everything she had ever known. With a deep breath, she stepped out of the river. The water dripped from her hair, glinting like strands of silver. She reached for the hand the vampire lord offered, and the moment her fingers brushed his, a surge of energy coursed through her. It was neither frightening nor gentle. It was powerful, alive, and awakening something that had long been waiting. "You will not be alone," he said softly. "But danger follows you, and those who fear what you have become will come for you. Both the humans and my kind, they will see you as a threat." Leora nodded, her resolve hardening. Fear still lingered, but it was tempered by curiosity and the thrill of discovery. She had been feared, tested, and almost destroyed, but now she was something more, something unshakable. Together they walked toward the shadows of the forest, where the moonlight barely reached, and the wind whispered secrets of the ages. Leora could feel the pulse of life around her, the heartbeat of the world itself. She had become immune to weakness, yes, but she also felt the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders. Every step forward was a step into the unknown, where danger and destiny intertwined. As they disappeared into the trees, a faint, eerie glow lingered on the river's surface, marking the place where the girl had become something else entirely. The villagers peered from their windows, fear and awe etched into their faces. The elders whispered among themselves, knowing that they had witnessed an event that would change everything. And in the distance, beyond the reach of mortal eyes, other shadows began to stir, creatures that had watched from afar, waiting for the moment when a new power would rise. They sensed her energy, her immunity, and the potential she held. For the first time in centuries, the balance between light and dark had shifted. Leora's eyes, dark and luminous, reflected the moonlight as she walked deeper into the forest. She did not know what awaited her, whether allies or enemies, but one thing was certain: she would not be the same girl who had trembled at the river's edge. She was awake, she was powerful, and she was ready to face a world that would fear her, desire her, and test her in ways she could not yet imagine. And then, from the far edge of the trees, a whisper floated on the wind. It was soft, almost like a voice of the river itself, yet filled with a promise. "Your journey has begun, and the world will never be the same." With that, the forest seemed to hold its breath, and Leora felt the first stirrings of destiny ripple through her veins. She did not look back. She could not. The girl in Eldoria was gone. In her place was something new, a force that even the shadows themselves would learn to fear. The forest beyond Eldoria stretched endlessly, its tall trees thick with mist and shadows that seemed to move as if alive. Leora followed Kale in silence, her heart still pounding from the baptism of holy water and the strange connection she had felt with him. Each step seemed to awaken something deep within her, a pulse of energy that sang through her veins, urging her to test the limits of her newfound power. Kale walked with the grace of centuries, silent and controlled, yet every movement radiated strength and authority. Leora could feel it, even in the spaces between his steps. The air seemed to bend around him, the shadows themselves acknowledging his presence. And yet, beneath the aura of power, there was a softness he tried to hide, a flicker of curiosity whenever he glanced at her. "You are different from any being I have known," Kale said finally, his voice smooth like velvet and low enough that the wind might carry it. "The holy water has not only failed to harm you, it has merged with you. You are extraordinary." Leora's eyes, reflecting the moonlight filtering through the trees, met his. "Extraordinary," she repeated, her voice trembling slightly. I don't know what I am. All I know is that nothing can hurt me. I don't feel fear like before, but I feel something else. Something I can't name." Kale stopped walking and turned to her. "What you feel is the weight of power," he said softly. "And with power comes attention, sometimes from those who wish to guide you, sometimes from those who wish to destroy you." Leora swallowed hard, realizing that the world she had once known, the village, the elders, even the river, was now behind her. She had crossed into a realm where humans feared what she had become, and vampires would envy or hate her. Her immunity made her untouchable, yes, but it also made her a target. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. "You could leave me here in the forest and no one could harm me. Why stay?" Kale's gaze held hers, steady and intense. "Because you are not meant to walk alone," he said. "And because there are truths you must learn, powers you have barely begun to understand. The world is full of shadows, Leora, and not all of them will welcome you. But if you are guided carefully, you may shape the world instead of being shaped by it." They continued through the forest, moving like shadows themselves. Leora felt her body adjusting to the energy that now lived within her. She could feel the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, the subtle life in every plant and creature around her. The energy of the river, the holy water, flowed in her veins, alive and luminous, reminding her that she was no longer human in the ordinary sense. "Can I control it?" she asked after a while, uncertainty threading through her tone. "Can I choose what this power does, or will it choose for me?" Kale smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and caution. "Control comes with practice and patience. Power does not yield easily, and it tests those who wield it. You have been given a gift and a responsibility. You must learn to master it, or it may master you." Leora nodded, determination setting in. She did not want to be mastered by fear, by power, or by anyone. She had already survived what the elders had thrown at her. She would not bow to anyone else. Hours passed as they traveled, and the forest slowly began to change. The trees grew taller, darker, and the mist thickened, curling around them like living tendrils. Leora sensed something in the air, a presence watching them, patient, calculating. Kale halted and crouched behind a thick trunk. "Stay quiet," he whispered. "We are not alone." Leora's pulse quickened, but she stayed silent, letting her senses extend. She could feel the movement of several beings ahead, their presence cold and deliberate. Vampires, she realized, and not ordinary ones. These carried the weight of authority, of centuries of cunning. "They know of you," Kale murmured. "They feel the energy of the holy water within you, and they will test it. Tonight, you must not only observe, but understand the danger that comes with what you have become." From the shadows, figures stepped forward, their eyes gleaming like knives in the moonlight. They circled, silent and deliberate, testing, observing. Leora felt her heart quicken, not from fear, but from the raw awareness of her own strength. "Stand tall," Kale said, moving closer. "Do not show weakness, even if it is the first time you face them. Your power is your shield, let them see it." Leora drew in a deep breath. The energy within her stirred, warm and luminescent, responding to the unspoken command of her will. As the vampires approached, she did not feel fear. Instead, she felt a strange clarity, a quiet strength that radiated outward from her. One of the elder vampires, taller and older than the rest, stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "So, this is the child who absorbed the holy water," he said, his voice cold and smooth. "The one they claim cannot be harmed. Let us see if that is true." Leora held her ground. She could feel the power in the holy water flowing through her like a river of light. When the elder vampire lunged, she instinctively raised her hand, and the energy surged outward. It was not destructive, but it was firm, a shield of pure force that made the vampire recoil slightly. The others hesitated, sensing the unnatural strength that radiated from her. Even Kale's eyes reflected a mixture of pride and caution. Leora realized that her power was no longer just a gift, it was a warning, a message to anyone who might try to challenge her. After a tense moment, the elder vampire straightened and bowed slightly, though his expression was unreadable. "Indeed, you are extraordinary," he said. "But extraordinary draws attention. Careful, little one. The world is not so forgiving." The vampires melted back into the shadows, leaving Leora and Kale alone. She exhaled, feeling the rush of adrenaline fade, replaced by a strange exhilaration. She had faced her first test and survived. More than survived, she had made her presence known. Kale looked at her, his gaze softening slightly. "You are stronger than you realize," he said. "But strength alone is not enough. You must learn patience, wisdom, and restraint. There will be others, humans and vampires alike, who will not understand you. Some will fear you, others will seek to control you." Leora nodded. She understood now that her journey was only beginning. The baptism of the holy water had made her immune, but it had also made her a beacon, a symbol of something that neither humans nor vampires had seen before. Her life would never be simple again. As they continued through the forest, Kale began to teach her small lessons: how to sense the presence of others, how to move quietly, how to let the holy water's energy flow without losing control. Leora was a quick learner, her mind sharp and her instincts keen. With every step, she felt the bond between them grow. Not yet love, perhaps, but something equally potent: trust, curiosity, and a magnetic pull she could not resist. Hours later, they reached a clearing where the moonlight poured down, revealing a small, abandoned temple. The stones were worn, the carvings faded, but the place hummed with energy. Kale gestured for her to enter. "This will be your training ground," he said. "Here, you will learn to control what flows within you. Here, you will prepare for the world that waits beyond the forest." Leora stepped inside, feeling the energy in the temple resonate with her own. She raised her hands experimentally, letting the holy water's essence flow outward, brushing against the walls, the air, the stones. She could feel the temple responding, alive with a faint, luminous pulse. Kale watched from the shadows, his expression unreadable. "You are ready," he said quietly, "but being ready does not mean being safe. Remember this: every being who senses your power will either seek you or hunt you. Even those who claim to protect may have hidden motives." Leora nodded again, her resolve hardening. She did not need protection. She needed understanding, guidance, and control. The world would not shape her, she would shape it. And Kale would be there, not as a master, but as a guide through the shadows that now stretched across her path. As the first light of dawn touched the forest, the mist curled around them like a living veil. Leora looked toward the horizon, feeling the weight of her destiny pressing on her shoulders. She was no longer just a girl who had survived the river's trial. She was a being of power, immune to weakness, capable of standing in the face of danger. But the forest was not empty. From the edges of the clearing, shadows moved, creatures watching, waiting. Leora sensed them, the same way she sensed the first vampires that had tested her. Some would be allies, some enemies, and some would not reveal their intentions until it was too late. A sudden rustle in the trees made her pause. Kale moved instinctively in front of her, protective yet calm. "Patience," he murmured. "Observe, understand, then act." The rustle grew louder, closer. Leora could feel the pulse of her power respond, steady and strong, ready for anything. Her heart raced, but not with fear. This was exhilaration, the thrill of stepping into a world that had always been forbidden to her. And then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. Not a vampire, not quite human, something in between, a watcher who had sensed the holy water's energy from afar. Its eyes glowed faintly, its presence cold yet compelling. "You are remarkable," it said, its voice smooth but edged with danger. "But power like yours draws attention you cannot yet imagine. The balance of the world will shift because of you." Leora's breath caught. She knew in that moment that her journey had only begun. The world outside the forest was full of mysteries, threats, and challenges far greater than she had faced before. Yet she felt no fear. She was ready to meet whatever came, and to embrace the power that had been given to her. Kale's hand brushed hers, a subtle reminder of the bond forming between them. "We face it together," he said softly. Leora nodded, her eyes meeting his. And in that moment, she understood that her path would be one of discovery, danger, and desire, a journey that would test not only her power, but her heart. The shadow in the clearing watched silently, waiting for the right moment to strike or reveal its purpose. Leora felt its gaze, felt the weight of destiny pressing upon her, and knew that the next trial was closer than she could imagine. The forest held its breath, and so did Leora. The abandoned temple glowed faintly under the silver light of the moon, the ancient stones humming softly with energy. Leora had spent weeks learning to control the essence of the holy water that now coursed through her veins. She could sense the life of every plant, the rhythm of the wind, and even the faint pulse of distant creatures in the forest. The power was intoxicating, yet Kale had warned her repeatedly. Strength alone was not enough. Wisdom, patience, and understanding were just as vital. "You must not only sense the world," Kale said one evening as they practiced in the temple. "You must understand it. Every action has a consequence, every choice creates ripples. With power like yours, even a small mistake can become a disaster." Leora nodded, her dark eyes reflecting the soft glow of the moonlight. She had grown stronger, more confident, but the weight of responsibility rested heavily on her shoulders. Her body no longer felt fragile, and the fear that had once gripped her in Eldoria was gone. But she felt a different kind of tension now, one born of expectation, temptation, and the knowledge that the world outside the temple would not wait for her to be ready. Kale moved closer, his presence commanding yet strangely comforting. "You are ready for more than training," he said. "The world beyond these trees will test you in ways that the temple cannot. But first, you must understand desire, trust, and the subtle power of influence." Leora tilted her head, puzzled. "Desire?" she asked softly. "I have nothing to desire but freedom, and maybe understanding." Kale smiled faintly, a shadow of amusement in his dark eyes. "You desire more than you know. Power awakens feelings that you cannot yet name. Control it and it will guide you. Lose control and it may consume you." For a moment, Leora felt the pull of his words, the warmth of his presence, the intensity in his gaze. She did not yet fully understand the force between them, but she sensed that it was as old and potent as the forests themselves, a connection that drew her toward him even as she tried to maintain her independence. Days passed in training. Leora learned to manipulate the energy within her, to extend it outward in pulses, to shield herself from danger without harming others. Kale guided her, his voice steady, patient, yet tinged with something unspoken. Slowly, trust grew between them, and with trust came attention, a quiet magnetic pull that neither could ignore. One night, as the temple lay bathed in moonlight, Kale spoke softly, "There is someone you must meet." He led her to the edge of the forest, where a small path wound toward a ruined castle on a distant hill. "Allies and enemies will test you," he said. "Some will see your power as a threat, some as a weapon, and some as a tool for their ambitions. You must learn to discern friend from foe before it is too late." As they approached the castle, Leora sensed movement. Figures emerged from the shadows, vampires of influence, humans of curiosity, and creatures neither fully human nor vampire. They surrounded her, circling slowly, their eyes fixed on her. Among them, one figure stepped forward. It was the same shadowy watcher she had sensed in the forest weeks ago, its glowing eyes unwavering. "You are remarkable," the watcher said, its voice smooth and measured. "But power such as yours draws attention you cannot yet imagine. Your abilities will create allies, enemies, and challenges that will test your heart, mind, and soul." Leora met the gaze of the watcher without fear. She had faced the vampires in the forest before, and she had survived the baptism of the holy water. She had grown stronger, wiser, and more determined. Yet a ripple of caution passed through her. This being carried authority, and she could sense the hidden danger in its calm words. Kale stepped closer, placing a protective hand near her shoulder. "Observe," he whispered. "Learn, do not act until you understand the full picture." The watcher studied her for a long moment, then spoke again. "The balance of this world is fragile. Powers such as yours are rare, and rare powers invite greed, fear, and envy. You will be tested, betrayed, and tempted. And some of those tests will come from the ones you trust most." Leora's heart clenched. She had thought of Kale as a guide, a protector, perhaps even a companion in this strange new world. But now the watcher's words seeded doubt. Could she trust even him completely? Her thoughts twisted in tension, and she realized that learning to control her power was only part of the challenge. The greater part would be controlling her heart and mind. Over the next weeks, the tests began. Shadows moved in the castle ruins, invisible forces probing her strength, her patience, her instincts. Kale guided her through each encounter, teaching her to anticipate attacks, to sense motives, and to use her energy not as a weapon of destruction, but as a tool of understanding. She learned to shield herself and others, to absorb danger without losing her own balance. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Leora sensed something unusual. A faint pulse, like a heartbeat, approaching from the forest. Her instincts screamed caution, but curiosity compelled her to move closer. "Wait," Kale said, his voice sharp with concern. "Do not go alone. Something is near, and it is not friendly." But before she could respond, a figure appeared in the shadows, someone she had trusted among the castle's visitors, a vampire who had claimed to support her training. "I need your help," the figure said urgently. "They are planning something against you, against the balance of power." Leora's mind raced. Could she trust this ally? The holy water energy thrummed in her veins, warning her of hidden danger, yet the figure's plea seemed sincere. She decided to follow cautiously, keeping her senses alert and her energy ready to defend. They moved through the forest together, shadows blending with shadows, until they reached a hidden chamber beneath the ruins. There, Leora saw the truth. The ally had lied. The chamber contained enchanted relics designed to trap her, suppress her powers, and expose her to dangers even she could not resist. The betrayal was clear, and her pulse quickened with a mixture of anger, fear, and exhilaration. Kale appeared suddenly, his presence solid and commanding. "I warned you," he said quietly, "but the test is yours to face. Trust your instincts, Leora. Control your power and do not let betrayal bind you." Leora focused, closing her eyes and letting the holy water energy flow through her fully. She felt it merge with her senses, extending outward to touch the stones, the relics, even the air around her. With a surge of radiant power, the traps shattered, the chamber's energy dissipating in a wave of luminous light. The betrayer fell back, eyes wide in shock and fear. "Impossible," they whispered. "No one can." Leora stepped forward, her eyes glowing softly with the holy water's essence. "No one can harm me unless I allow it," she said firmly. "And no one will control me." Kale watched her, pride and admiration in his dark eyes. The lesson had been harsh but necessary. Leora had not only survived a trap, she had demonstrated mastery, courage, and clarity. Her power was no longer raw, it was tempered, precise, and guided by her own will. After the confrontation, Kale led her back to the temple. The night was calm, but the forest seemed alive with silent whispers. Leora understood that the betrayal was only the beginning. The world outside the temple, and even beyond the ruins, was full of hidden tests, secrets, and dangers that would continue to challenge her. That night, as Leora rested, Kale sat nearby watching her. "You are changing," he said softly. "Your power is growing, but so is your understanding. You are learning more than control. You are learning responsibility, judgment, and insight. And soon you will face your greatest trial yet." Leora looked at him, a question burning in her eyes. "Will I be ready?" Kale's gaze softened, but there was a shadow behind it, a caution she could not ignore. "Readiness is a myth. The world will test you whether you are ready or not. But strength, clarity, and courage, these you already possess, and I will stand with you if you allow me." Leora felt a warmth rise in her chest, a mixture of trust, admiration, and something more. A quiet, steady pull toward him she did not yet fully understand. She realized that her connection with Kale was not simply about guidance or protection. It was about partnership, about shared purpose, and perhaps, in time, something deeper. As the first light of dawn touched the temple stones, the forest pulsed with life, energy, and unseen observers. Leora sensed movement beyond the trees, creatures and beings watching, waiting, and evaluating her. She knew that her journey would not only be about mastering her powers, but about navigating the complex web of alliances, betrayals, and desires that shaped this world. And then a whisper echoed through the temple, soft yet chilling. "Your choices will shape more than your destiny, Leora. They will shape the fate of all who walk in shadow and light." Leora's eyes widened. The words carried weight beyond the forest, beyond the temple, beyond even her understanding. She felt the full responsibility of her power, the awareness that immunity to weakness was only the beginning, and that every action she took would echo far beyond herself. Kale placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, grounding her. "Do not fear what is to come. Trust yourself and trust the power within you. But remember, the world will not wait for you to be ready." Leora nodded, her heart steady, her mind alert. She was no longer the trembling girl who had faced the holy water. She was a force to be reckoned with, guided by her own will, aware of her strengths, and ready to face the betrayals and temptations that awaited her. Yet deep in the shadows, a pair of glowing eyes watched her with cold calculation. A new figure had arrived, one older, stronger, and far more cunning than any she had faced before. It moved silently through the forest, invisible to the light, sensing the energy that radiated from Leora, and it whispered softly like a shadow caressing the wind. "The time has come. The test of trust, power, and desire begins, and no one can save her from what lies ahead." The forest fell silent, the temple humming faintly with energy, and Leora felt the first stirrings of a trial that would challenge everything she had learned, everything she had become, and perhaps everything she had dared to feel. The forest had fallen silent, but the air was thick with anticipation. Leora stood at the edge of the temple clearing, the first rays of dawn filtering through the mist. Her dark eyes glimmered with a strange light, the holy water's essence flowing through her, merging with her being. She had learned control, patience, and strength over the past weeks, but a chill ran down her spine. She sensed a presence approaching, something far older and stronger than anything she had faced before. Kale appeared at her side, his presence steady, reassuring, yet tense. "They are here," he said softly. "The Council of Shadows, the humans who fear you, the vampires who envy you, they have come together. They seek to end you before your power grows any further." Leora's chest tightened, not with fear but with resolve. She had been baptized in holy water, survived betrayal, and faced the first tests of her strength. Now, the final confrontation awaited. She was no longer the girl who trembled by Eldoria's river. She was something greater, a bridge between worlds, immune to weaknesses that had bound others for centuries. "They cannot harm me," she said, her voice steady, "and I will not let them destroy what I have become or what I can protect." Kale placed a hand on her shoulder, and she felt the familiar pull of their connection, strong, magnetic, unbreakable. "Remember," he said, "power alone will not save you. Use your heart as well. Mercy, judgment, and clarity will be your greatest weapons." The first figures emerged from the mist, humans with staffs and relics, vampires clad in armor, and shadowy figures whose intentions were impossible to read. Their eyes locked onto Leora with fear, envy, and desire to control. Yet she felt no panic. She could sense every movement, every heartbeat, every shadow that reached toward her. "Step forward, little one," Elder Malric shouted from the crowd, his voice trembling. "We will end this abomination and restore the natural order." Leora's gaze swept over the gathering. She could feel the tension, the fear, the hatred, and even the curiosity in those who watched. Then she raised her hands. The energy within her pulsed outward, a glowing shield of pure light. Sunlight, silver, holy relics, none of it could harm her. The council recoiled as the air vibrated with her power. Kale moved closer, his hand brushing hers. The subtle touch sent a current of warmth and strength through her, anchoring her focus. "Do not waste your power," he said quietly. "Be precise. Control it." Leora closed her eyes and extended her awareness. The energy of the holy water flowed from her, spreading across the clearing, brushing against the forest, rippling outward in a rhythm that seemed to communicate with the world itself. She did not attack, she did not destroy. She simply radiated strength and clarity. The elders whispered among themselves, fear etched into their faces. The vampires faltered, sensing a force they could not control. Even the shadowy watchers in the distance hesitated, caught between awe and fear. "You are stronger than any of us imagined," Elder Malric admitted, his voice wavering. "But you are still a child, and children are not meant to wield such power." Leora opened her eyes, dark and unwavering. "I am not a child," she said firmly. "I am a force for balance, and I will not be controlled by fear, hatred, or envy. If you choose to oppose me, you will see what your fear has created." A sudden movement caught her attention. From the edges of the clearing, a figure stepped forward, tall, cloaked in shadow, eyes glowing with a mixture of malice and fascination. It was the Watcher who had observed her in the forest weeks ago. Its presence was heavy, its intent unclear. "You have grown," it said, its voice smooth but cold. "But growth alone will not save you. You are a bridge, yes, but bridges are fragile and every bridge can fall." Leora held her ground, feeling the energy inside her respond. She could sense the danger, the temptation, the challenge in the Watcher's words. She did not need to answer. The holy water's power pulsed in her, steady, resilient, alive. Kale moved to her side, his eyes locking on hers. "Do not let words distract you," he whispered. "Focus on what you know to be true. Control your power, protect yourself, protect what matters." The Watcher's eyes narrowed. With a flick of its hand, shadows surged forward like living serpents, twisting through the clearing to strike at her. But Leora was ready. She extended her hands, and the holy water energy flowed outward like sunlight in motion. The shadows met the glow and evaporated, leaving nothing behind but a faint shimmer in the air. The council gasped, stepping back in disbelief. None of their relics, weapons, or powers could pierce the shield of her light. Leora's chest rose and fell steadily as she felt the surge of energy, not as a threat, but as a confirmation. She was in control. She was powerful. She was untouchable. Kale's hand rested lightly on hers, and she felt the warmth, the connection, the unspoken promise of partnership. "It is not just power that makes you strong," he said softly. "It is wisdom, restraint, and clarity, and you have all three." The watcher stepped back, evaluating her with a new curiosity. "Perhaps," it said slowly, "you are more than I expected, but strength alone does not make a bridge. You must choose who you are, what you stand for, and who will follow you." Leora nodded, understanding. The bridge she had become was not just between humans and vampires, light and dark, life and shadow. It was also a bridge between desire and duty, power and compassion, trust and vigilance. And the first step of her legacy would be clear. She would shape the world not through fear but through balance. From the crowd, the elders faltered. Some lowered their relics, others whispered apologies. Even the vampires shifted, uncertain how to proceed. The energy she radiated was not hostile, it was resolute, commanding respect and demanding understanding. Kale moved closer, his voice low but filled with warmth. "You have done more than survive, Leora. You have proven that power, tempered by wisdom and courage, can change the world." Leora felt a surge of relief, pride, and something deeper, a quiet, steady pull toward Kale, one she no longer tried to resist. They had faced betrayal, fear, and tests of strength together. Now, at the end of the storm, she felt the bond between them deepen into something enduring, unbreakable. She lowered her hands, letting the glow settle into her veins. The forest, the temple, and the clearing seemed to breathe with her energy, acknowledging her triumph. Kale's gaze softened, and for the first time he allowed himself a smile. "You are extraordinary," he said quietly, "and yet you are still human in ways that matter. That is why you will succeed." The shadowy watcher stepped forward one final time. Its eyes glowed with a faint light, its presence commanding. "The tests you have faced are only the beginning. Your journey will continue and new challenges will come. But know this, you have passed the trial of power, the trial of trust, and the trial of heart. Few have done so." Leora's chest swelled with pride. She had faced betrayal, danger, and temptation, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more self-assured. Her immunity was more than a shield. It was a symbol, a promise, and a force for change. Kale extended his hand toward her. "Come," he said, "let us leave this place behind. The world beyond awaits, and you are ready to meet it as the being you were always meant to become." Leora took his hand without hesitation. The warmth of his touch reminded her that strength alone was not enough. Connection, trust, and the courage to face the unknown were equally important. Together, they stepped forward into the forest, leaving the temple and its trials behind. The forest seemed alive with approval. Birds stirred, the wind whispered, and even the shadows shifted, acknowledging the balance she had achieved. Leora felt the pulse of the world in her veins, steady and strong. She was not only immune to weakness, she was a force of harmony, a bridge between worlds, and a protector of life and balance. As they emerged from the trees, the first rays of sunlight touched the horizon. Leora looked out across the valley below, where Eldoria lay in stillness. She had changed, the village had changed, and the world itself had begun to shift in response to her presence. Kale's gaze met hers, steady and unwavering. "Whatever comes next," he said softly, "we face it together. Not as master and pupil, but as equals, partners, and perhaps more." Leora smiled, a mixture of relief, joy, and anticipation. "Together," she echoed. And then, from the distant shadows of the valley, a figure emerged. Another child, marked with a faint glow of magic, carrying a prophecy. Leora felt the energy ripple in her chest, a reminder that her story was only the beginning, that her actions had set into motion a legend yet to be fully realized. The world had tested her, tempted her and betrayed her, but she had risen above it all. She was no longer a girl of Eldoria. She was a bridge between worlds, a force of balance, and a symbol of hope. And as the sun rose fully, spilling golden light across the valley, Leora and Kale stood together, ready to face the future. A world forever changed by the power of one girl who had absorbed holy water, defied fate, and embraced her destiny. The forest whispered, the river shimmered, and the legend began.